Do you feel the weight of the world crushing down on your shoulders, pressing into your chest with every thought you cannot silence? Do you wake each morning haunted by fears that have no shape, no substance, yet command your every action, your every hesitation, your every failure? Look closer, and you will see the truth. Most of the burdens you carry, the storms you fight, exist only within the walls of your own mind. They are shadows of perception, whispers of imagined threats, illusions your imagination has built with patient cruelty. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, the philosopher king, whispers across the centuries, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." From the moment we are born, we inherit a world teeming with suffering, chaos, and unpredictability. Pain is inevitable, loss is inevitable, death is inevitable. Yet, the suffering you endure, the bitterness, the frustration, the helplessness, they are not handed to you by the universe. They are chosen, cultivated, nurtured by the very mind that could free you. You imagine disasters that have not occurred. You replay conversations that are long over. You predict betrayals that will never happen. And in this theater of your own creation, you live as a prisoner, chained by the self-inflicted illusions of danger, failure, and inadequacy. Epictetus, a man born into chains yet freed by philosophy, teaches this relentless truth. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The pain you feel, the rage, the despair, they are not gifts from life. They are the distortions of perception, the twisting of reality by the untrained mind. You see the world through the lens of desire and fear, and it deceives you, traps you. Every imagined insult, every anticipated misfortune, every bitter what-if, it lives in your mind, but it is not real. Real suffering comes not from the world, but from the failure to command the self. You, and only you, are the warden of your inner citadel. Seneca, writing to a friend drowning in anxiety, asks, "Why do you torment yourself? You suffer not from the events themselves, but from your judgment of them." Consider this: a man may lose everything he possesses and yet remain unshaken if his mind is disciplined. Another may possess all that others envy and yet crumble into despair, poisoned by imagined insults, anticipated failures, and endless what-ifs. The difference lies not in circumstance, but in mastery. Mastery over thought is mastery over suffering. Mastery over thought is mastery over life. Imagine the mind as a garden. Thoughts are seeds. Some grow into flowers, some into weeds. A careless gardener allows the weeds to take over, letting fear, doubt, resentment, and imagined threats root deep and choke the beauty of clarity, peace, and wisdom. Marcus Aurelius instructs, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." But before you can act, you must first clear your mind. You must uproot the weeds before they overrun your inner sanctuary. You must see the illusions for what they are, false rulers that have no real power except the power you give them. We are creatures of habit. We react to thoughts as though they were truth. Every day you rehearse your fears, your doubts, your worst expectations, strengthening them as if they were real, shaping your reality around illusions. But this too is a choice. You may stop, you may question, you may train your perception to recognize the difference between what is real and what is imagined. The Stoics do not promise comfort. They do not promise a world without suffering. But they promise clarity, power, and freedom. The kind of freedom that comes when the mind no longer obeys phantom tyrants. Darkness will always exist outside you, but the deepest darkness is within. The mind is a battlefield where imagined enemies attack relentlessly, where phantom catastrophes strike with deadly precision. You will never control the storms of the world, but you can control the storms of your mind. Epictetus calls this the art of ascent, the discipline of choosing which thoughts to entertain and which to dismiss. Each time you allow an imagined fear to command your attention, you yield power to a tyrant that does not exist. Each time you reject it, you reclaim the citadel. So ask yourself, how many of your problems are real and how many are shadows? How many sleepless nights are spent wrestling ghosts of imagined failures? How often have you suffered not because life demanded it, but because your mind created it? The answer is brutal, but liberating, almost all. And in this recognition lies the first step to true mastery. Awareness of the illusion is the first strike against it. Awareness of the illusion is the first taste of freedom. Imagine waking tomorrow unchained from the tyranny of your own thoughts. Imagine facing misfortune and loss with a mind that refuses to inflate them beyond measure. Imagine seeing insults for what they are, sounds, actions, events that have no power except that which you grant. Imagine suffering without despair, pain without bitterness, death without terror. This is not fantasy. This is the Stoic path. This is the work of clearing the mind, uprooting illusion, mastering thought. This is the practice that Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca have passed down through centuries, a path not for the faint-hearted, but for those willing to see reality as it is and to take control where it can be taken, inside the mind. You must ask yourself and answer honestly, are you the master of your mind or the slave of your imagination? Are your problems real, or are they phantoms you feed with attention, emotion, and fear? Each day, each thought, each breath offers the choice, to yield or to command, to suffer or to see clearly, to be lost in illusions or to rise into the discipline of self-mastery. The road is dark, the work is relentless, the mind resists, but within you lies the power that every emperor, every philosopher, every Stoic has sought. The power to see reality clearly, to feel without distortion, to act with virtue despite chaos, and to endure without surrender. And in that mastery lies the freedom that all men chase but few achieve. You are beginning right now the first step toward that freedom. You are seeing, perhaps for the first time, the subtle tyranny of your own thoughts. And that awareness is a weapon. That awareness is the spark that lights the path out of suffering. That awareness is Stoicism. Once you see the shadows, the illusions that rule your waking hours, the question arises, what do you do with that knowledge? How do you move forward knowing that most of the suffering you endure is self-created, nurtured, and fed by a mind that has been careless, distracted, or weak? The answer is simple in theory, brutal in practice. You take command. You stand in the center of your inner chaos and declare without hesitation that you will no longer be ruled by what is not real. Marcus Aurelius teaches that the universe is indifferent. It does not conspire against you, nor does it favor you. Events happen, people act, nature unfolds, everything outside you proceeds without concern for your preferences, your plans, or your fears. And yet, the mind of man bends, twists, and molds these indifferent events into personal calamities. A delay becomes betrayal, a criticism becomes shame, a misfortune becomes ruin, and you willingly accept these constructions as reality, letting them poison every moment of your life. The Stoics do not promise the removal of pain. They promise the discipline to endure it without self-inflicted torment. Epictetus, once a slave, once bound by chains that could have broken any soul, understood this truth with the clarity of suffering itself. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond. In other words, the battlefield is not the world, it is the mind. The war is not fought in courts, on streets, or in the hands of others. It is fought behind the eyes, in the dark corridors of thought, in the quiet moments when fear creeps in and desire tempts, when resentment whispers, when despair nudges you toward surrender. And make no mistake, the mind will resist. It will cry for the familiar chains of imagined suffering because it is used to them. For years, decades even, it has rehearsed the catastrophes, nurtured the illusions, and drawn a map of threats that exist only in thought. Breaking this habit is not gentle, it is violent. It is a tearing away of comfortable lies. Seneca describes it as a kind of death, the death of illusion, the death of self-deception, the death of the automatic, unexamined mind. And yet, from this death, something new arises, clarity, freedom, and power. Consider how many times you have imagined the worst outcome, only to see it never manifest. Consider how many sleepless nights you have spent writhing in anxiety over words that were never spoken, actions that never occurred. betrayals that never came. The mind is a cruel storyteller, spinning tragedies that exist only on the page of imagination. And yet, because you give them belief, you suffer. You labor under the weight of shadows. You bleed from wounds that are not real. And all the while, the truth remains patiently waiting. Control your perception, and the phantom collapses. Control is not easy. It requires constant vigilance, relentless honesty, and a refusal to let the self slip into comfort or distraction. Marcus Aurelius calls this the work of life itself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Power over your mind does not mean eliminating fear, desire, or sorrow. It means seeing them clearly, understanding them as they are, and refusing to be driven by them. It means recognizing the difference between what is real and what is imagined, between what you can influence and what you cannot. This mastery begins with attention. Attention is the soldier of the mind. Without it, the illusions march unchecked. Without it, you wander in darkness, believing every shadow to be a threat. With attention, you begin to see the machinery behind your suffering, the predictable patterns of worry, the habitual loops of resentment, the self-created catastrophes you replay over and over. Awareness does not remove the shadows, but it shines light upon them, and light is power. Light is freedom. Yet, awareness alone is insufficient. Knowing that most of your problems exist only in your mind does not free you. The mind will still rebel. Fear will rise. Desire will strike. Anger will tempt. The Stoics teach that the mind must be trained, disciplined, forged in the fires of reflection and reason. Daily, relentlessly, you must examine your judgments. Ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it within my power to change? Is it worth my suffering? These questions are not philosophical luxuries. They are tools, weapons against the tyranny of imagination. And here lies the paradox. The path to mastery is simultaneously simple and excruciating. Simple because it rests on a single truth. The mind is the source of suffering, and the mind can be disciplined. Excruciating because the mind resists. It will plead for indulgence, for distraction, for comfort in illusion. It will tempt you with familiar fears and familiar pains. To rise above it, you must be ruthless with yourself. You must see every phantom clearly, reject every imaginary threat, and step steadily into reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Seneca writes, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think of the countless hours, the endless nights, spent rehearsing misfortune that never arrives. Each imagined betrayal, each feared failure, each anticipated insult, these are the true tormentors. And you, until this moment, may have believed them to be unavoidable, inevitable, real. Now you see differently. Now the chains become visible. Now the shadows take shape, and the power to break them lies in your hands. The discipline of the mind is not merely about thought, it is about life. When you control your perception, you control your emotions. When you control your emotions, you control your actions. When you control your actions, you shape your destiny. The world may remain indifferent, cruel, and unpredictable, but within the walls of your consciousness, you become sovereign. You become a fortress, unmoved by storms outside, unshaken by illusions within. Consider the lessons of Marcus Aurelius again. Each day, each moment, he reminded himself, life is short, death is certain, events are indifferent, virtue is the only good. He understood that the battles of the mind outweigh the battles of the world. He understood that most suffering is self-inflicted, nurtured by misplaced judgments and unexamined fears, and he trained himself relentlessly to see the world as it is, to act with virtue, to endure with clarity. You are called to do the same. There will be no magic. There will be no sudden revelation that frees you from imagined suffering. There will be struggle, effort, and vigilance. You will stumble. The mind will rebel. But each time you recognize the illusion, each time you refuse to yield to imagined calamity, each time you act with reason and virtue rather than fear, you grow stronger. Each moment of mastery compounds. Each act of clarity builds the citadel of your mind, and each moment of surrender erodes it. Ask yourself, are you willing to do this? Work. Are you willing to examine your thoughts with unflinching honesty, to see your fears as phantoms, your anxieties as shadows, your anger as a self-inflicted wound? Are you willing to fight the mind itself, to reclaim the freedom that has always been within you? This is the Stoic path, not comfort, not escape, not illusion, freedom, clarity, mastery. And in this battle, the enemy is not outside. The enemy has always been inside. The first step is awareness, the second is attention, the third is discipline. And as the layers fall away, as the illusions collapse, a terrifying, beautiful clarity emerges. Most problems exist only in your mind. They are your creation. They are yours to command. They are yours to destroy. And in that command, you discover the power that no external event, no fortune, no circumstance can ever take from you, the power to shape your experience, the power to endure without suffering, the power to live as a master rather than a victim. Once the mind recognizes its own tyranny, the next step is action. Awareness alone will not free you. Seeing the shadows for what they are does not destroy them. You must train the mind, sculpt it like a blade, refine it with discipline, and test it relentlessly against the illusions it has long fed upon. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca all understood that thought is a muscle. It strengthens only under strain through repeated, deliberate effort. To master your mind, you must begin with daily practice, with relentless confrontation of the imagined enemies that haunt every waking hour. Consider the morning ritual of a Stoic. The day has not yet begun, yet the mind is already a battlefield. You imagine slights, failures, confrontations, losses. You anticipate insults, mistakes, betrayal, and disappointment. This is where the work starts. Marcus Aurelius would rise before dawn and remind himself, today, I will meet men who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. I cannot avoid them. They are part of life, but I will not allow them to harm my mind unless I permit it. The principle is simple but brutal. You cannot control what others do, what happens in the world, or the whims of fortune. You can control only your own mind, your own judgment, your own response. The first exercise is observation. Watch your thoughts as a soldier watches the enemy. Do not participate, do not react immediately. See how fear rises, how desire tempts, how anger stirs. Notice the patterns, the repeated illusions, the rehearsed catastrophes that play like a broken record. Ask, which of these threats are real? Which of these dangers exist outside my mind? Which are merely shadows, whispers of the imagination, stories my own hand has written? This exercise is uncomfortable because it confronts you with your own weakness. It exposes how often you have been deceived by your own thoughts, how willingly you have suffered for nothing. But discomfort is the instrument of growth. Next comes reflection. Epictetus instructs, if you wish to be good, first believe that you are bad. Confront yourself with your limitations, your failures, your habitual surrender to illusion. Examine each fear, each anxiety, each imagined disaster with honesty so sharp it pierces through self-deception. Ask, why does this worry me? What is the root of this imagined suffering? Often the answer is simple. The mind prefers illusion to reality because reality is demanding. Reality requires courage, discipline, and endurance. Illusion requires nothing but attention and belief. The mind clings to what is familiar, even if it is poison. Then comes preparation. Seneca advises imagining adversity before it occurs. This is the practice of premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils. You imagine the worst, loss, betrayal, humiliation, death. Not to succumb to fear, but to train the mind to remain calm and unshaken when adversity strikes. The process is not morbid, it is liberation. Each imagined catastrophe, when confronted deliberately, loses its power. Each phantom, once fully seen, cannot terrorize you again. By rehearsing suffering, you take away its grip. You build resilience, clarity, and control over the mind that once trembled at shadows. But understanding theory is not enough. The mind must be tested in action. Every insult, every delay, every failure is an opportunity to exercise mastery. When someone criticizes, the mind reacts automatically: anger, shame, defensiveness. The Stoic responds differently. They observe the impulse, recognize it as a product of imagined harm, and choose virtue over reaction. They act with integrity, patience, and clarity. They let the imagined harm pass without contamination. In this way, the battlefield extends beyond thought into life itself. Each choice, each response, each moment of restraint reinforces the training begun in quiet meditation. You must also confront your attachments. Most imagined suffering arises from desire, wanting things to be other than they are. You fear loss because you are attached to possession. You fear failure because you are attached to recognition. You fear betrayal because you are attached to expectation. Marcus Aurelius reminds himself, it is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Begin to see attachment as the root of imagined suffering. Desire is the architect of phantoms. Each unfulfilled expectation, each clinging thought, each imagined slight is a reflection of the mind's uncontrolled cravings. To master suffering, you must master attachment. Consider the practice of journaling, the tool of the Stoics. Write down your fears, your worries, your imagined catastrophes. Examine each one critically. Ask, does this exist in reality? Can I influence it? Is it worth my attention and energy? Marcus Aurelius filled volumes with such exercises, not to avoid life, but to confront it honestly, to see illusions for what they are, and to train the mind to respond with reason rather than reflex. The pen becomes a mirror, reflecting the mind's shadows, allowing you to see clearly, dissect ruthlessly, and act decisively. The night offers another battlefield. Before sleep, review the day. Examine each moment when the mind succumbed to fear, anger, or desire. Ask, was this suffering real or imagined? Was it necessary? What can be learned? Sleep becomes not an escape but a laboratory, a time to refine awareness, to anticipate tomorrow's challenges, and to continue training the mind even in rest. The disciplined mind never stops its work. It moves continuously, sharpening, clarifying, reinforcing. Stoicism is not a philosophy for comfort. It is a philosophy for warriors of the mind. It demands honesty, courage, and relentless effort. You will stumble, you will relapse into old patterns, you will imagine the worst and let it take hold. But the measure of mastery is persistence, not perfection. Each recognition of illusion is a victory. Each moment of clarity a small liberation, and over time these moments accumulate, building a mind so disciplined, so fortified, that the shadows lose all dominion. And so the work continues. Observation, reflection, premeditation, discipline, action, review. Each step strengthens the citadel. Each step dismantles illusions. Each step trains the mind to see reality without distortion, to feel without contamination, to endure without despair. The process is gradual, unrelenting, and merciless. It is the true battle of life, the conquest of the self, the destruction of imagined suffering, the forging of the mind into a weapon capable of facing reality with calm, clarity, and courage. Ask yourself now, how many hours of your life have been stolen by shadows? How many opportunities lost to imagined disasters, invented betrayals, phantom failures? How much potential squandered because the mind believed lies it created? Stoicism offers a path out, not of the world's suffering, but out of the suffering you have invented. It asks only this: will you train yourself? Will you discipline your perception? Will you confront fear, desire, and anger with reason, virtue, and clarity? The path is not easy, it is not meant to be. But the rewards are absolute: freedom from phantom tyrants, liberation from imagined suffering, and mastery over the mind that has long been your prison warden. And as you practice each day, with diligence, awareness, and courage, you begin to glimpse a life beyond illusion. a life guided not by fear or desire, but by reason, virtue, and the steady, unshakable power of a mind that commands itself. The shadows are still there, but they no longer control you. You are learning to see, to act, and to endure. You are learning to live with clarity in a world that offers no guarantees, only reality as it is. You are becoming slowly, relentlessly, a master of your own mind, and in that mastery lies the truest power any human can possess. This continues building the practical, immersive Stoic approach, guiding the audience through real exercises and mental disciplines while keeping the mind, once trained in observation and discipline, still wages silent wars. Fear lingers, not as a stranger, but as a familiar companion. Anger waits in the corners, ready to ignite at the slightest insult or disappointment. Desire whispers endlessly, tempting you to chase illusions and phantom comforts. It is here, in these moments, that Stoicism proves its ruthlessness and its brilliance. The philosopher does not pretend the shadows are gone. He does not pretend the mind is at peace. He confronts them with clarity, with unflinching awareness, and with the relentless will to command his own perception. Marcus Aurelius writes as though speaking to himself, as though reminding a young man of the harshest truths. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every imagined threat, every fear, every phantom disaster is not merely an obstacle, it is a teacher. It is a test of your mastery, a mirror reflecting the weaknesses you have allowed to grow unchecked. The moment you recognize that the fear is imagined, that the suffering is manufactured, you seize the opportunity to act. You no longer flee, you no longer react. You step forward, unshaken, guided by reason, and strengthened by the discipline of the mind. Anger is a similar phantom. It arises not from injustice but from expectation. Someone behaves contrary to your wishes. Someone insults, betrays, or disappoints. And the mind, untrained, inflates this moment into a catastrophe. It rages, seethes, imagines revenge, rehearses humiliation. Yet Epictetus tells us, no man is hurt except by himself. Anger is the product of judgment, not circumstance. It exists only because you give it life. To master it, you must see it clearly. A phantom, a false ruler, seeking dominion over your reason and virtue. You do not deny the feeling, but you refuse to obey it. You let it pass like a storm over open water, leaving the surface calm and untouched. Desire is another shadow. It convinces you that happiness exists in possession, recognition, wealth, or comfort. You imagine that the absence of these things is a catastrophe, that life itself is incomplete without them. Seneca warns relentlessly against this trap. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Every craving is a phantom, a seed of suffering planted by the mind, nourished by expectation and grown into torment. The Stoic cultivates detachment, not indifference. He sees desire for what it is, refrains from slavery to it, and learns to find contentment in the reality before him rather than the fantasies he has long chased. These exercises of control are not gentle. They demand confrontation with the raw edges of the mind. They demand honesty that is uncomfortable, relentless self-inquiry, and a refusal to yield to habitual illusions. Meditation alone will not suffice. Awareness alone will not suffice. Action, reflection, and continuous discipline are required. Each time the mind rebels, each time fear arises unnecessarily, each time anger inflates, each time desire tempts, you must meet it as a soldier meets an enemy, with focus, with clarity, and with the certainty that only you determine its power. Real mastery is forged in adversity, but not only the adversity that the world delivers. Often the most severe trials are those of imagination, of thought, of internal resistance. When a man sits alone, pondering slights that never occurred, fearing failure that has no basis, imag, inning catastrophes that will never come, he experiences suffering far greater than any external circumstance could inflict. And this is why Stoicism is so radical. It does not offer escape from life. It offers mastery over life as it is, beginning with the mind that interprets, judges, and reacts to it. Imagine standing before a mirror, and in the reflection you see every imagined insult, every fabricated threat, every rehearsed betrayal. These phantoms are not outside you. They live in your mind, fed by habit and fear. And now imagine confronting each one without flinching, seeing them clearly, naming them for what they are, recognizing their power exists only because you believe in it. Each moment of recognition, each refusal to surrender to false suffering, builds strength. Each act of restraint reinforces the fortress of the mind. The discipline extends to action. Life is unpredictable. Loss, betrayal, insult, disaster, these will arrive. And the mind, if untrained, will inflate each event, weaving catastrophes of thought that never existed. But the Stoic acts differently. He faces the world with awareness and clarity, knowing that external events are indifferent, knowing that suffering comes not from the world, but from his own judgments, knowing that only his reason, virtue, and perception are within his control. Marcus Aurelius, facing plagues, wars, and betrayal, wrote not of despair, but of method, how to maintain clarity, integrity, and purpose amidst chaos. This is the path you are called to walk. Fear of death, often the most persistent phantom, also demands confrontation. You imagine endings, losses, the unknown, as unbearable and catastrophic. And yet death, like every external event, is indifferent. It happens outside your control. To fear it is to surrender power over what cannot be commanded. Epictetus insists, death is nothing to us, since when we death has not come. And when death has come, we are not. The mind, once it sees death clearly, once it recognizes it as an inevitable part of nature and existence, loses its ability to torment. Fear, once named and understood, becomes powerless. Even pleasure, even comfort, must be examined. The mind imagines suffering when it lacks them, overvalues them when present, and suffers under both conditions. The Stoic seeks not pleasure or avoidance of discomfort, but clarity. He sees both as external, indifferent, and transient. True power lies in the mind's ability to remain unmoved, to act with virtue, to endure with serenity, regardless of the shifting currents of fortune. This is the freedom most men never experience, chained as they are to shadows of imagined need and phantom loss. Every thought that arises is a test. Every imagined catastrophe is a test. Every surge of anger, every pulse of fear, every whisper of desire is an opportunity to exercise mastery. Do not shrink from this battle. Do not deny its difficulty. Do not seek comfort in illusions. Each confrontation with the mind strengthens the citadel, builds resilience, and deepens understanding. Through relentless practice, the shadows lose their dominion, the phantoms dissolve, and the mind becomes an unshakable fortress. Ask yourself, how many imagined problems have dictated your choices, controlled your emotions, and stolen your power? How many hours have been consumed by fears that never existed, by desires that brought only distraction, by anger that harmed only yourself? The Stoic path demands that you face these questions with honesty, courage, and discipline. It demands that you dismantle illusions, command the mind, and endure without surrender. It is not easy, it is not meant to be, but it is the only path to true freedom, the only path to mastery over life, the only path to a mind unshaken by shadows. The shadows will not vanish, the phantoms will not disappear. Fear, anger, desire, they are persistent, insistent, and cunning. But you, armed with awareness, discipline, and reason, can refuse them power. You can act, you can endure, you can rise above the illusions that have long held you captive. This is the work of the mind. This is the war that matters. This is the path of the Stoic, from Marcus Aurelius to Epictetus to Seneca, handed down through centuries as a weapon against suffering and a guide to mastery. In this war, every day is a battlefield, every thought is a skirmish, every emotion is a test, and every moment of clarity, restraint, and reason is a victory. Slowly, relentlessly, you train the mind to see reality as it is, to endure without distortion, and to act with virtue despite the chaos outside. The fortress grows stronger with each act of mastery, until the shadows may surround you, but they no longer command you. Life is unrelenting. It does not pause for your convenience, your comfort, or your expectations. It delivers misfortune without warning, injustice without care, loss without apology. Yet the mind, if untrained, interprets each event as a catastrophe, inflates each challenge into a personal torment, and imagines suffering far beyond reality. Marcus Aurelius, facing war, plague, and the betrayal of men he trusted, wrote of the universe's indifference. And in that indifference lies liberation. Events are neither good nor evil. Only your judgments make them so. The first step toward resilience is seeing this clearly. Suffering exists, but not as most believe. It is not the harshness of the world that destroys us. It is the unmastered mind that magnifies it, twists it, and converts it into torment. Epictetus reminds us, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The same loss can break one man and leave another unshaken. The difference lies in perception, in the discipline of thought, in the mastery of judgment. To endure without self-inflicted suffering, you must see the truth. External chaos cannot harm unless the mind permits it. Consider adversity, the kind that no preparation can fully anticipate. The death of a loved one, betrayal by a friend, the collapse of plans you thought unshakable. The mind reacts first, often violently. Panic rises, anger surges, despair threatens. But the Stoic sees the truth. These events are neither personal nor moral. They are indifferent. The collapse of fortune is a constant in the universe. Expect it, accept it, and prepare to endure it with clarity. Seneca wrote, "No man can have a peaceful life who thinks too much about lengthening it or anticipates losses that may never come." He knew that imagining the worst before it arrives, understanding it, and preparing the mind strengthens the spirit to endure when reality strikes. Resilience is forged not in comfort, but in confrontation. You must face the storms of life as they arrive and also anticipate them in thought. Premeditatio malorum, the deliberate visualization of misfortune, is not a practice of pessimism. It is preparation. By imagining the collapse of plans, the betrayal of allies, the loss of wealth, health, or reputation, you train the mind to withstand these blows without surrendering to chaos. You experience adversity in thought before it arrives in life, and when it does, it meets a mind ready, calm, and resolute. And yet, mastery of perception extends beyond anticipation. It is in the moment of suffering that Stoicism proves itself. When insult is hurled, the mind reacts. When betrayal strikes, the heart burns. When loss arrives, grief threatens to overwhelm. This is when the practice matters. Observe the emotion, name it, understand it. It is a response, not a command. Fear is fear, anger is anger, grief is grief, but they do not have dominion over action unless allowed. You act not in submission to emotion, but in accordance with reason, virtue, and what is within your power. In this discipline lies freedom. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the impermanence of all things, on the fleeting nature of life, and on the inevitability of loss. To see clearly is to recognize that all external goods, comforts, and relationships are temporary. Clinging to them, fearing their loss, is a recipe for suffering. Stoic resilience arises from detachment, not indifference, but an acceptance of impermanence. You love without obsession. You strive without desperation. You engage with the world fully, yet your inner citadel remains unshaken. Even pain, physical or emotional, is neutral until interpreted. The mind assigns meaning. It labels discomfort as tragedy, weakness, or failure. Epictetus urges the learner, pain is not unbearable, it is the judgment of the mind that makes it so. By training perception, by observing sensation without unnecessary commentary, by refusing to amplify suffering with imagined catastrophe, the mind gains strength. Each moment endured without surrender is a brick laid in the fortress of resilience. Real adversity is a mirror reflecting both strength and weakness. It exposes the cracks in thought, the habits of fear, the illusions of control. A sudden loss reveals dependency on external goods. A betrayal reveals attachment to others' judgments. A failure reveals indulgence in imagined outcomes. And yet each exposure is an opportunity, each confrontation a chance to fortify, each moment of endurance a lesson in self-mastery. Seneca reminds, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Suffering, when faced with reason and discipline, becomes a forge for inner power. Your perception shapes reality more than events themselves. Two men may face identical misfortune, one crushed, despairing, consumed by imagined suffering, the other unmoved, understanding the event's indifference, acting with reason and enduring with virtue. The difference is not in the world, but in the mind, and this is the core of Stoic resilience, power over perception, mastery of judgment, and the cultivation of a mind that cannot be overthrown by circumstance. Do not seek comfort in illusions. Do not flee from adversity. Do not wish for life to spare you suffering. These desires are the chains that enslave. Instead, embrace reality as it is. Meet each challenge with preparation, reflection, and discipline. Accept the impermanence of all things. Recognize that pain, loss, and betrayal are part of the natural order, and act with virtue, courage, and reason in every moment, regardless of what the world delivers. Consider the inevitability of change. Fortune is a river, constantly shifting, sometimes gentle, sometimes violent. To resist it with expectation, clinging, or fear is to suffer unnecessarily. To navigate it with awareness, flexibility, and calm is to endure without being broken. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." Acceptance does not mean passivity. It means aligning perception with reality, acting within the scope of what can be commanded, and refusing to let illusions dictate suffering. And in this alignment, a quiet, unshakable strength emerges. You begin to see that most suffering is optional, manufactured by expectation, desire, and fear. Even unavoidable pain can be endured without torment if the mind refuses to amplify it unnecessarily. The fortress of reason shields you, the discipline of judgment anchors you, and the cultivation of virtue guides your action. External events may remain indifferent, chaotic, or cruel, but your inner citadel stands firm. Ask yourself, are you ready to face life as it is, not as you imagine it? Are you ready to meet loss, betrayal, insult, and misfortune without surrendering to unnecessary suffering? Are you prepared to train the mind daily, to discipline thought, to confront fear, anger, and desire, and to endure with virtue? The work is relentless, the practice is unending, but the rewards are absolute: freedom from self-inflicted torment, resilience against the chaos of life, and the power to act with clarity, courage, and mastery, no matter what storms arise. Life will continue to strike. Fortune will shift. People will fail, events will surprise, pain will arrive. The mind, if untrained, will amplify these moments into catastrophe. The Stoic, trained in awareness, discipline, and virtue, will see them clearly, endure them steadfastly, and act with wisdom. In this lies the ultimate truth. The mind commands experience, not circumstance. And in commanding the mind, you command life itself. The mind is a battlefield, a relentless storm of impulses, judgments, fears, and desires. Most people surrender to it, letting imagined threats, imagined losses, and imagined failures dictate the course of their lives. The Stoic refuses this surrender. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Mastery begins here, not in the world, not in wealth, not in relationships, but in the unyielding command of thought itself. Every thought that arises is a test. Each desire, each fear, each surge of anger, and every craving for approval is an opportunity to practice discipline. You are either the master of your mind or its servant. Epictetus declares, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The journey to mastery is not one of comfort. It is dark, demanding, and relentless. Every day requires vigilance, every moment a confrontation with impulses that would enslave you. You must observe, reject, and redirect them. Control of thought begins with recognition. Before you can discipline the mind, you must know its patterns. Observe how it reacts to the world. Notice how fear inflates shadows into monsters. Watch how desire constructs phantoms of need that never existed. Witness how anger turns small slights into imagined tragedies. Awareness alone does not free you, but it exposes the mechanisms of suffering. Seeing clearly is the first strike against the phantoms of your imagination. Detachment follows. This is not apathy. It is not indifference to life or its experiences. It is the understanding that external events, other people's actions, and the unfolding of fate exist beyond your control. Happiness, peace, and strength are not granted by circumstance. They are cultivated internally. The Stoic acts in the world, loves, works, and strives, yet does so without attachment to outcomes. The mind that is free of expectation is free of suffering. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. By detaching from imagined outcomes, by refusing to grant them authority over thought and emotion, the mind becomes unshakable. Discipline is daily. The mind must be exercised as a soldier exercises the body. Each impulse resisted, each unnecessary fear denied, each imagined disaster dismissed is a repetition of the Stoics' training. Journaling, reflection, meditation on mortality, and rehearsal of adversity are not abstract exercises. They are tools to forge mental strength. Marcus Aurelius filled his meditations with reminders, self-directed critiques, and reflections designed to strengthen his judgment and fortify the mind against illusions. You must do the same, daily, relentlessly, and without excuse. Consider the mind as a fortress. Thoughts are soldiers, impulses are messengers, emotions are banners. If left unchecked, chaos prevails. Fear, desire, anger, and envy take command, shaping perception and dictating action. But with discipline, the fortress becomes impenetrable. Each thought is evaluated, each emotion assessed, each judgment weighed against reason and virtue. The phantoms of imagined suffering find no foothold. The mind remains calm, clear, and commanding, regardless of storms outside. Desire is a particularly cunning adversary. It convinces the mind that happiness lies in wealth, recognition, or external comfort. Each craving strengthens the phantoms of fear. Each expectation inflates the shadows of imagined suffering. The Stoic sees desire clearly. It is acknowledged, understood, and redirected. It is not eliminated, but it is denied power. Happiness is cultivated internally, virtue becomes the source of satisfaction, and the mind no longer trembles before absence or loss. Anger, too, is a phantom with formidable strength. It thrives on imagined injustice, on perceived insults, and on expectations violated. The untrained mind rages, reacts, and punishes unnecessarily. The Stoic observes anger, recognizes its source, and refuses to obey it. Acting with reason and virtue, the mind maintains clarity and composure. Anger becomes a teacher rather than a tyrant, a signal for reflection rather than a call to destruction. Fear is perhaps the most pervasive illusion. Fear of death, fear of failure, fear of loss, these shadows occupy every waking hour for most men. Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus both insist, the object of fear is indifferent. Death comes whether you anticipate it or not. Loss occurs whether you cling to attachment or not. Failure arises whether you expect success or not. Only the mind's interpretation amplifies fear into suffering. Confront fear directly. Name it. Examine its logic. See it as the phantom it is. And in that recognition, it loses its dominion. Even thought patterns themselves must be disciplined. The mind tends toward repetition, replaying imagined scenarios, rehearsing failures that never occurred, amplifying hypothetical disasters. The Stoic interrupts this cycle. Thoughts are examined, assessed, and either directed toward action, reflection, or dismissed as irrelevant. Control of thought is not passive, it is active, relentless, and exacting. Each moment of mastery reinforces the fortress, each lapse becomes an opportunity for renewed vigilance. Epictetus emphasizes preparation, anticipate the challenges before they arrive. Preemptively rehearse adversity, imagine betrayal, loss, insult, failure, and mortality, not to dwell in pessimism, but to train the mind to meet reality calmly. When misfortune comes, as it inevitably will, the mind meets it unshaken. Phantoms collapse, fear diminishes, and clarity guides action. Strength is not found in avoiding difficulty, it is found in facing it repeatedly, deliberately, and with control. Virtue is the anchor of thought. Justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom guide every judgment, every response, every act. The disciplined mind aligns perception with reality and action with virtue. External chaos may rage, imagined disasters may arise, and emotions may surge, but the mind remains steady. It is sovereign, unshaken, and free. Freedom is not granted by circumstance, it is claimed by mastery of thought. Ask yourself now, how often has your mind enslaved you? How often have imagined fears dictated your decisions? How often have desire, anger, or expectation stolen your peace? The work of Stoicism is the reclamation of that freedom. It is the daily discipline of thought, the ruthless rejection of phantoms, and the cultivation of clarity, virtue, and reason. Each day is a practice, each moment is a battlefield. And victory lies in the mastery of the mind, which controls perception, action, and ultimately, experience. The fortress of your mind is built brick by brick. Awareness is the first brick, discipline the second, virtue the third. Each confrontation with fear, each denial of desire, each act of reason strengthens the walls. Shadows retreat, phantoms collapse, and slowly, relentlessly, the mind becomes sovereign, free from illusions, free from unnecessary suffering, and capable of enduring any storm. This is the power of Stoic mastery, a mastery within, impervious to the chaos of the world, unwavering against the illusions of the imagination. To live as a Stoic is to see reality clearly, unflinching and uncompromising. Life does not bend to your desire, it does not soften to your comfort, and it does not pause for your illusions. Every moment, every event, every person who crosses your path is indifferent. The world is neither friend nor enemy, it simply is. And the mind, trained or untrained, determines whether that world becomes suffering or freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote not as an emperor addressing subjects, but as a philosopher addressing the self. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. The path of clarity begins here. Acceptance is not resignation. It is not surrender to weakness or passivity. It is acknowledgement of reality without distortion, without exaggeration, and without the tyranny of expectation. Most suffering comes not from the events themselves, but from the refusal to accept them. A slight, a loss, a failure, none are inherently catastrophic. The mind inflates them, nourishes them, and convinces itself that destruction has arrived. The Stoic sees this process, names it, and refuses to obey it. The world happens. The mind decides how it responds. Epictetus teaches that external events are beyond your control. Your thoughts, judgments, and actions are within it. To act as if you control the uncontrollable is to suffer. To act in accordance with reason and virtue, recognizing the limits of influence, is to endure. Consider betrayal. Someone deceives, insults, or abandons. The untrained mind collapses, reacts, and suffers. The Stoic observes, "This is beyond my control," he says. "It has no power over my reason unless I grant it." And in that simple recognition, chains fall, fear dissipates, and freedom emerges. Freedom from imagined suffering is not passive observation. it is active engagement with reality, guided by virtue. Seneca warns that imagining disaster unnecessarily is a form of self-torture. When we inflate possibility into certainty, when we rehearse betrayal, loss and failure before they occur, we enslave ourselves. But the disciplined mind confronts reality as it is, anticipates without attachment, and acts without fear. Each step taken in this manner is a step into autonomy, a reclamation of power over perception, and a dismantling of phantoms. Action aligned with reason is the crucible of mastery. The Stoic does not withdraw from the world. He faces work, relationships, obligations, and challenges directly, guided by clarity and virtue. He does not act out of fear, desire, or expectation. He acts because it is right, necessary, and within his power. Each decision, each movement, each choice becomes an exercise of sovereignty over mind and emotion. Here, philosophy ceases to be abstract. It becomes lived. It becomes action without chaos, without distraction, and without the tyranny of imagined problems. Consider hardship again. The loss of wealth, the betrayal of trust, failure of plans. These are indifferent events. They do not dictate the state of the mind. Only judgment does. By seeing clearly, by accepting reality, by refusing to inflate misfortune into catastrophe, the Stoic moves through life with calm, focus, and resilience. He recognizes that pain is inevitable, that life is unpredictable, and that suffering is optional. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to exercise reason, to reinforce discipline, and to demonstrate virtue. The liberation of the Stoic mind comes also from detachment. Not detachment from life, but detachment from outcome. Imagine a world in which every expectation is a cage, every hope a prison, every fear a tyrant. This is the condition of most men. The Stoic frees himself by acting without clinging, loving without attachment, striving without desperation. External events may rise or fall, people may betray or abandon, fortune may reward or punish, but the mind remains sovereign. Each decision is guided by reason, virtue, and an understanding of what is within control. Even death, often the mind's final phantom, becomes neutral. Marcus Aurelius reflected repeatedly on mortality, not to inspire fear, but to liberate. Death is inevitable, pain is inevitable, loss is inevitable, and yet the disciplined mind observes these facts without surrender. Death, like desire, fear, and anger, is indifferent. Acceptance does not diminish life. It amplifies clarity, purpose, and presence. Life is no longer distorted by illusion. Experience becomes direct, unfiltered, and profound. In practice, this requires unflinching daily vigilance. Observe thoughts, name illusions, reject unnecessary fears, confront desire without indulgence, reflect on virtue with honesty, prepare for adversity without attachment, act with reason, love, work, and live without surrendering sovereignty of mind. Every day is training, every moment is a test. The fortress grows not by chance but by repeated, deliberate acts of mastery. The Stoic path is solitary, rigorous, and often misunderstood. The world celebrates comfort, indulgence, and distraction, but the master of the mind finds strength in struggle, clarity in adversity, and freedom in discipline. He understands that suffering is largely self-inflicted, that external events are neutral, and that freedom arises from mastery of thought, perception, and judgment. This is not theoretical, it is lived, practiced, and embodied in every action, every breath, every decision. Ask yourself now, how much of your life has been stolen by imagined problems? How many decisions have been made under the tyranny of fear, desire, or expectation? How much suffering has been manufactured, rehearsed, and magnified by the untrained mind? Stoicism offers a path forward, not to remove life's trials, but to navigate them with power, clarity, and virtue. Each day, each choice, each act of reflection is a step toward freedom, the freedom of a mind no longer enslaved by shadows. The true test is constant. Adversity will arrive, loss will come, desire will tempt, anger will flare. The Stoic does not pretend the world is gentle. He does not deny the mind's illusions. He observes, understands, and commands. He sees reality clearly, acts with virtue, endures with calm, and refuses to let the phantoms of imagination rule his life. This is the path to liberation, the cultivation of strength, and the embodiment of wisdom passed down through Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. The final frontier is not the world outside, it is the mind itself. Even after years of observation, discipline, and reflection, the mind continues to whisper illusions, tempting you with imagined catastrophes, phantoms of fear, and shadows of desire. Marcus Aurelius knew this better than most. The struggle never ends. Life offers no permanent peace. Mastery is measured in moments of clarity, repeated relentlessly against the tides of thought that seek to enslave. To face the mind fully is to confront the deepest terrors, the fear of death, the fear of meaninglessness, the fear of being powerless over circumstance. The Stoic approaches these fears with unflinching honesty. He does not hide, he does not deny, he does not flee. Death is a constant companion, but it is indifferent. Loss is inevitable, yet it carries no inherent harm. Pain will arrive, but it becomes neutral when stripped of judgment. Epictetus teaches that what disturbs us is not events themselves, but the opinions we form about them. This principle, simple in words yet brutal in practice, is the weapon of the Stoic mind. To wield it is to reclaim the inner citadel, to walk unshaken through shadows that once terrorized. Consider the fear of failure, the fear that has driven countless men into paralysis or distraction. This fear exists entirely in the mind, a story told repeatedly, rehearsed endlessly, and accepted as truth. The Stoic examines it with clarity. What is failure? Is it external, measurable, permanent, or is it a construct, amplified by expectation and desire? Once recognized as illusion, once dissected without attachment, the fear loses its power. Action, guided by reason and virtue, replaces paralysis. The mind becomes sovereign, imagined pro. Blems collapse under the weight of disciplined thought, anger, and resentment. The twin phantoms that feed on imagined injustice are addressed similarly. The untrained mind burns, reacts, and plans revenge against shadows. The Stoic observes these surges, recognizes their source, and refuses to obey them. Acting with virtue, he neither indulges anger nor suppresses awareness of it. He sees it clearly, understands its mechanics, and chooses a path aligned with reason. In this clarity, resentment dies. The mind no longer suffers at the hands of illusions projected onto reality. Even desire, subtle and insidious, is confronted with relentless discipline. The mind imagines fulfillment, imagines pleasure, imagines security, and attaches happiness to these phantoms. The Stoic examines each craving, each attachment, each illusion of need. He understands that true satisfaction arises not from external goods, but from mastery of self. Desire becomes a signal, a reminder to act virtuously, to cultivate reason, and to align with what is within control. In detachment, freedom is born. The Stoic does not seek comfort. He does not flee from hardship. He faces it, anticipates it, and rehearses it. Seneca calls this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. By imagining the worst, the mind is prepared, and when reality delivers adversity, the illusion of suffering is stripped away. Each anticipated catastrophe loses its power. Each rehearsed fear becomes a tool. Each moment of calm endurance strengthens the fortress of reason. The ultimate mastery is understanding that almost all problems exist only in the mind. They are manufactured by imagination, magnified by expectation, and reinforced by attachment. They thrive on neglect, unawareness, and indulgence. The Stoic dismantles them, brick by brick, thought by thought, until the mind is free from tyranny. This is the pinnacle of freedom, to endure life's events with calm, to act without fear, to love without attachment, and to see clearly the difference between reality and phantom. Yet mastery is never complete. The mind is cunning, persistent, and creative in producing illusions. Even the most disciplined thinker must remain vigilant. Every day offers a new challenge, a new test, a new phantom of imagined suffering. Each moment of awareness, each refusal to obey fear, each choice aligned with virtue is a reaffirmation of sovereignty. The Stoic knows this, and he trains relentlessly. The war within never ends, but neither does the power that mastery grants. Ask yourself, how often have you allowed imagined problems to dictate your life? How often has fear, anger, desire, or expectation stolen your freedom, dictated your choices, and clouded your judgment? Stoicism teaches that the world outside cannot harm you except through the mind you allow to be enslaved. By mastering perception, controlling thought, anticipating adversity, and practicing virtue, you dissolve the shadows, destroy phantoms, and reclaim your power. The final step is deliberate action. Knowledge without practice is illusion. Reflection without execution is wasted effort. The Stoic acts in life guided by clarity and reason, undisturbed by imagined problems. He faces death, loss, betrayal, and pain with the calm assurance that only the mind can provide. Each day, each decision, each moment of discipline reinforces the fortress, strengthens resilience, and amplifies freedom. The power of mastery grows, imperceptibly at first, then unmistakably, until shadows lose dominion and the mind becomes sovereign. This is the preparation for the ultimate moment of understanding that life's suffering is optional, that external chaos is indifferent, that fear and desire are constructs of imagination, and that mastery of thought is the highest achievement. The mind, trained, vigilant, and disciplined, becomes impervious to illusion, and in this state, freedom, clarity, and power are absolute. The truth stands before you, unflinching and relentless. Almost all the suffering, almost all the anguish, almost all the despair you have endured exists only in your mind. Fear of failure, dread of loss, the weight of imagined betrayal, the torment of unmet expectation, these are phantoms, shadows created by your thoughts, magnified by desire, and nourished by neglect. You have allowed your imagination to imprison you, to dictate your choices, to poison the clarity of life itself. It ends here. The Stoics teach that freedom is not granted, it is claimed. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that nothing external can harm us unless we permit it. Epictetus insists that mastery of thought is the gateway to sovereignty. Seneca warns that imagined suffering is more common than real suffering, and more destructive. The path is simple, but brutal in its discipline. Observe your mind, confront its illusions, reject its tyranny, and act with reason and virtue. Nothing else matters. Not wealth, not status, not comfort. Only mastery of the self. Ask yourself, how much longer will you allow shadows to steal your life? How many more hours, days, years will be consumed by fear that never existed, anger that was never justified, or desire that only enslaves? The choice is yours. Your mind can remain a battlefield, a prison, a realm of phantoms, or it can become a fortress, impenetrable, unshakable, free. The work is relentless. There is no final rest, no permanent escape. There is only practice, daily vigilance, and the refusal to surrender to illusion. Begin now. Examine your thoughts with ruthless honesty. Name every fear, every imagined problem, every phantom disaster. Ask, does this exist in reality or only in my min? Strip it of power. Dissolve the tyranny of expectation, desire, and anger. Face adversity as it comes, not as you imagine it. Anticipate it without attachment. Act in accordance with reason and virtue, without surrender to impulse. Love, work, live, but never allow the mind to be enslaved again. Remember, each moment of clarity, each act of discipline, each confrontation with illusion is a victory. The fortress of the mind is built not in comfort, but in struggle. It is strengthened in adversity. It becomes unbreakable only through vigilance and action. Pain will come, loss will come, betrayal will come, death will come. And yet, the mind, once trained, stands sovereign. Shadows collapse, phantoms vanish, and freedom becomes real. You are not powerless. You are not a victim of circumstance. The only enemy capable of controlling you is the untrained mind, and it can be mastered. Begin the practice today. Observe, reflect, act, endure, repeat. The shadows you fear are illusions. The suffering you imagine is manufactured. The freedom you seek is within your grasp, in the command of thought, in the mastery of judgment, and in the cultivation of virtue. Rise, stand firm, face your mind as you would a battlefield, and refuse to surrender. Train it, discipline it, strengthen it. Let fear, anger, desire, and expectation be tools, not tyrants. Live with clarity, act with virtue, endure with courage. This is not philosophy, it is survival, it is mastery, it is liberation, it is Stoicism in its purest, most uncompromising form. And when the world strikes, as it inevitably will, and shadows gather, remember, you are sovereign, you are unbroken, you are free. Master your mind and the phantoms vanish. Live deliberately, fearlessly and fully, for the life you imagine as impossible exists only until you choose to command your mind. Thank you for walking this path of clarity, strength, and relentless self-mastery with us. Remember, every step forward is a victory of reason over illusion. Welcome to the Stoicism Notebook, where mastery begins and the mind becomes unshakable.